On the website for Turtle Lodge in the Saugeen First Nation in southeastern Manitoba, elders of the Anishinaabe share this about the elements of nature. Every seed needs the 4 elements of earth, air, water, and fire to flourish into a flower or a tree. Likewise, humanity and all of creation depend upon the 4 elements of nature for our spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental survival and connection. Water is the blood of Mother Earth. Water is life. They continue, water offers the passage to life. It is the passage into the physical world during the time of the birth of a child. Water is recognized as an element for purification, cleansing, and helping to make peace. The spirits of the thunderbirds bring the sacred water, the rains, to help cleanse and purify Mother Earth. In the fall, Jill started off our series of services about the classical elements with the element of Earth. All around our planet Earth, humans have been classifying our world philosophically into elements for thousands of years as a way of explaining the cycles of nature and of our lives. Water is one of the key elements in all these classifications. In Chinese philosophy, water is the 5th of the 5 elements of Wuxing, after wood, fire, earth, and metal. Water is seen as the most inward moving and energy conserving of the 5. In Taoist philosophy, water represents wisdom, flexibility, softness, and while it can be fluid and weak, it wields great power when it floods the land or overcomes fire. In the Bokongo religion of Angola, water represents Luvemba, the period of death that takes place during winter. Ancient Greek medicine conceived of 4 bodily humors that needed to be balanced in people, and paired these humors with the 4 elements. Phlegm was linked with water, both being cold and wet. In ancient and medieval medicine, water and phlegm were also linked to the cold and wet season of winter, to the feminine, and to the western point of the compass. There were again 5 elements in ancient India's Pancha Maha Bhuta, Pancha meaning 5, Maha meaning big, and Bhuta meaning elements. Water is associated with the moon, feelings, intuition, and imagination. In classical and Tibetan Buddhism, water is associated with fluidity and with the sensation of cohesion. To paraphrase Bogomila Welsh Ovcharov in Let Us Become Mystics of Art, in both Christianity and Sikhism, water symbolically unites the finite and the infinite. People are sometimes compared to water flowing to the sea and to God. Thou art an ocean, all are contained in thee. That line is from Sikh scripture, and another translation is, You are the river of life, all are within you. In the Bible, water is a symbol of cleansing and of spiritual rebirth. The reason water shows up in all these frameworks for how the world works is not just because of the symbolism. It's because water literally is life. Every living creature, protists, bacteria, fungi, plants, and animals, we all need water in some form to survive. Our oceans are home to more kinds of life than anywhere else on the planet. Reptiles, birds, and mammals are grouped as amniotes because we all initially develop in amniotic fluid. Embryos with their own portable aquatic environment, either in an egg or in utero, are one of the things that allows amniotes to live on land. My connection to water started before I was even an embryo. For most of the 1970s and a couple of years before that, my parents were commercial fishermen on the coast of British Columbia, because my mom's parents were BC commercial fishermen, and before them, my grandpa's parents had been BC commercial fishermen. My grandpa liked to think that a significant portion of his ancestors had been Viking invaders of the British Isles. They all loved boats and the ocean. In the late 60s and early 70s, the spawning grounds of BC salmon were still mostly doing well, and the coastal waters weren't yet overfished or polluted by fish farms, so my parents deckhanded their way through university. My dad had a falling out with his grad school math professor, so instead of pursuing a PhD, my parents bought their own boat. Life on the water can be unpredictable, though. On a very foggy September morning in 1973, in their first year with their own boat, it was hit by a freighter and took on water through the hole the freighter made in their hull. The Coast Guard responded quickly, and some nearby fishing friends responded even more quickly, and my parents were okay. Their partially sinking boat was towed to a shipyard, and it too was okay in a few months. Though the following spring, near Campbell River, a deadhead log below the waterline punched a new hole in their hull. That time, the boat started sinking more quickly than after the freighter collision. My parents ended up in the water in their survival suits. My mom was already about a month pregnant with me. My January 1975 birth was planned for the time between halibut and salmon fishing seasons. Unlike my grandpa, my dad was home for the birth of his first child, and he didn't have to give up important fishing time. Despite all my boat-happy forebears, I did not take well to the boat, so my dad switched to teaching. We moved to the Okanagan when I was a toddler. That move away from fishing was probably lucky for my family. It wasn't as dire as the collapse of the cod stocks in Newfoundland, but BC fishermen faced a lot of challenges in the 1980s and beyond. While my mom in particular missed the coast, growing up near Okanagan Lake was wonderful. The lake and its beaches are important parts of my childhood and teen summer memories. Last month, on an early morning flight to Vancouver, I happened to look out the window and thought, I wonder which city, oh, I know that lake, and that bridge, which has been a helpful progress guide both times I've joined the 2.3 kilometer across the lake swim. It is not a coincidence that almost all cities are located along rivers and lakes, with enough water to sustain a large population. As humans, we're about 2/3 water, and we need it to bring nutrients to our cells, to maintain our body temperature, to get rid of waste. Waterways shape our communities, and then our communities often shape our waterways, for good or ill. Since I first learned about the water cycle, I've been fascinated by it. How water evaporates into the clouds, becomes rain or snow, and starts all over again, sometimes passing through plants or animals, which have their own water cycles. It is both weird and wonderful that in any sip of water I drink, those drops of water have been in the sky or plants many times, and there are almost certainly molecules of H2O in those drops that have passed through humans or animals, possibly on the other side of the world or centuries ago. Through our dependence on and direct participation in the water cycle, we are in relationship with water. Anishinaabe legal scholar and professor Dr. Amy Kraft notes, water is life and it has a spirit. We are always in relationship with water, from before we are conceived, through birth, in our everyday lives, and even into our next life. Water is everything. We have a responsibility to uphold that sacred relationship. We need to recognize that in taking up this responsibility, it's not one of control or ownership or jurisdiction over water, but rather a relationship to and with water. That is a truly decolonizing understanding of the relationship that we have with water, that it has its own agency and decision-making. A prime example of that is in thinking about the duality of water. It is a source of life, but also able to take life. One of the things Dr. Kraft's words made me think of was the 1854 cholera outbreak in London, which killed 616 people, most of them in the first 2 weeks of the outbreak. In the mid-1800s, the London sewer system hadn't yet reached the Soho area, and animal droppings, rotting fluids from slaughterhouses, and all sorts of gross things were ending up in the cesspools underneath Soho's cellars. Those cesspools were overflowing, so the London government dumped the waste into the Thames, unwittingly contaminating the city's main water source. Also in the mid-1800s, there were two working theories about what caused cholera, either miasma, or particles in the air that arose from the soil around the Thames, or germs that were transmitted when people drank water. Physician John Snow was one of the people who believed the germ theory. When the 1854 outbreak started, he talked to people to figure out where they got their water from and identified the public water pump as a main source. The information he gathered convinced the parish authorities to disable the pump by removing its handle. Dr. Snow later used a map to show cases of cholera, which clearly showed the clustering around the pump. He also showed that houses getting water from further upriver, where the water was cleaner, had fewer cases of cholera. His study of the outbreak is regarded as the founding event of epidemiology, and to me, it also shows the importance of being responsible in our relationship with water. While ancient Romans did not provide great examples of being responsible in relationship with water or the rest of their environment, they were very good at providing clean drinking water to cities. Before them, civilizations in Egypt and India had built aqueducts, but the Romans used better engineering, and from 312 BCE to CE 226, they built a complex network across modern-day France, Spain, Greece, Turkey, and North Africa to supply cities with water for drinking, irrigation, and public baths and fountains. The city of Rome had about 11 aqueduct systems, drawing water from as far as 92 kilometers away. I was astounded and delighted to learn on a tour of Rome that some of those systems are still providing Rome with water, including the water in the Trevi Fountain. For our 2024 spring break, my family went to Nevada and Arizona, and I also marveled at the Hoover Dam as a feat of engineering. On a raft tour of the Black Canyon from near the base of the dam, I learned that its main purpose is controlling water, not generating electricity. Power generation has paid for the initial construction costs and its maintenance budget, but that's secondary to providing water for irrigation and municipal demand. But the dam has also changed the Colorado River ecosystem, especially downstream fish stocks and the plants and animals that were adapted to the natural flooding that happened before the dam's construction. We also visited Sedona and the Grand Canyon, two places that have been shaped by water over millions of years. Most of present-day Arizona was covered by warm, shallow seas for about 20 million years, starting 300 million years ago. The iron trapped in seawater makes the lower layers of sedimentary rock around Sedona red as they oxidize, and it's stunning. After water deposited sediment and tectonic plates uplifted the Colorado Plateau, the Colorado River and erosion started cutting through and wearing away at the layers of rock and creating today's stunning landscapes. But those landscapes, particularly the Grand Canyon, now attract tens of thousands of visitors every day. Between the dams on the Colorado River, climate change, and population growth, as well as old infrastructure at the canyon, it is getting difficult to meet demand for water at the Grand Canyon and for the whole southwestern United States. My awareness of the environmental stresses caused by people controlling water only partially dims the effect being around water and the landscapes it creates has on me. I know feeling grounded and rooted brings a sense of peace to many, but for me, peace is flowing and cool and watery and kind of centered, but also like the edges of me are mingling with the rest of the world. It's easiest to feel centered and most peacefully myself outside, on or near water. I think that's why I like Reader's Digest's paraphrase of Karen Blixen so much. The cure for anything is salt water, sweat, tears, or the sea. I'm less picky about salinity, though. Fresh and chlorinated water also feel healing and centering to me. When I was in labor with my younger child, water was the cure for my contractions. I got into the tub at home when the contractions quickly changed from every 20 minutes to every 7 or 8. As each contraction started, I'd scoop a yogurt tub of warm water, pour it over the dome of my belly, and any pain would get dissolved into the water and flow back into the bathtub. All that was left was the pressure of the contraction. I wasn't set up for a home birth, so eventually had to get out of the water and use other techniques, but it was pretty amazing. Water is life, and sometimes water is magic. Since May of 2023, I've been swimming regularly, usually twice a week, with the Manitoba Masters Aquatic Club at the Pan Am Pool. At first I struggled with staying for the whole hour of practice, but the more often I show up, the more I get that flowing, peaceful feeling, at least when I'm not doing timed sprints or butterfly. As my therapist notes, only in water are we physically both held and free. I love how, while swimming, I can feel both supported and challenged, both meditative and playful. As I get more efficient at moving through water, I feel like I'm learning to carry that feeling of flow even away from the water, and to draw energy from it. Though I've also realized that here in Winnipeg, from whenever the snow first falls until sometime in April or May, I'm usually not very far from heaps of cold water. The other sure path to that peaceful feeling for me is art that centers water. I first learned this in February of 2017 at an exhibit of the Art Gallery of Ontario called Mystical Landscapes, Masterpieces from Monet, Van Gogh, and more, curated by Catherine Loughlin. I loved the whole exhibit, but was stopped by an immersive feeling of being one with the world when I saw Eugène Janssen's Dawn over Ridderfjorden and Nocturne. A wave of coolness washed over me and took away any stray thoughts, and I was just immersed in blue. I had the same experience with several pieces in the Winnipeg Art Gallery's 2021 exhibit, Na Adobe to Draw Water, which reflected on international Indigenous connections to water, spiritually, environmentally, socially, and culturally, looking into collective histories and fragilities of the future. Those artists' work is not public domain, so I can't share it here, but I encourage you to see Christy Belcourt, Marianne Nicholson, Rebecca Belmore, and the other artists' work if you have a chance. In 1893, the town of Giverny, where Claude Monet lived, wanted to build a starch factory in the wetlands next to Monet's garden. He fought to save it. He purchased the swamp, and instead it became a water source for his garden. This was a double gift to Giverny and to the world. It saved the wetlands, and it allowed Monet to paint about 250 pieces in his Nymphéas, or Water Lilies, series. At age 57, in 1897, as he embarked on the series, Monet wrote, "The temptation came to me to use the theme of water lilies to decorate a salon. Carried all along the walls, covering all the surfaces, it would create the illusion of an endless whole, of a wave without a horizon or a shoreline. There, nerves overtaxed by work could be soothed by the quieting effect of those still waters. And whoever spent time in this room would find a sanctuary for peaceful meditation in the midst of an aquarium in bloom." Even though I've only seen a few of the water lilies paintings in person, I'm certain he succeeded. Wendell Berry's 2003 poem, The Peace of Wild Things, feels like a companion piece to Monet's goal of the aquarium in bloom, and is applicable today as Karen Blixen's words. "When despair grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. May we all be held and free.